A woman faked her own death to test the hearts of those she loved, but she only found the truth when her parents' tears forced her to stop the game.
Clara was the most powerful woman in the city. When she walked through the glass doors of her office building, the air seemed to change and everyone stood up straighter. They called her the boss. She had built an empire from nothing, and now she sat at the peak of the tallest tower overlooking the world. She was beautiful, intelligent, and wealthy. To anyone looking from the outside, Clara had the perfect life, the money, the fame, and a handsome husband named Robert who waited for her every night. But inside, a chill was growing. Lately, her mansion felt too quiet. She would return from a day of making deals to a dark house. Robert used to meet her at the door with a smile, but now he was always busy in his private gym or tired in the guest room. She began to notice small things, a look that was no longer warm, the way he checked his watch while she spoke. Clara could spot a lie in a boardroom from a mile away, and she was starting to feel like her own home was a mystery she couldn't solve. The next morning, Clara sat in her sunroom when her best friend Maya walked in without knocking. Maya was vibrant and had been her friend since childhood. "Oh, Clara, you look exhausted," Maya said, helping herself to the expensive fruit. "You work too hard. You should let Robert handle more of the business." Maya smiled, but the warmth didn't reach her eyes. She was always asking about company profits and new projects. Clara watched her closely. Maya was carrying a new designer bag that cost more than a small car, despite having no high-paying job. "That's a lovely bag, Maya," Clara said quietly. Maya jumped, tucking the bag behind her chair. "This? Just a gift from an old boyfriend," she said, quickly, changing the subject to a party. A prick of doubt hit Clara's heart. She loved Maya like a sister, but she felt a secret hiding behind those expensive sunglasses.
That night, Clara asked the chef to prepare Robert's favorite meal, hoping to bridge the distance between them. Robert arrived late, his tie loose and his face flushed. He sat down and began eating without a word. "How was your day, Robert?" Clara asked. He didn't look up. "Fine, just busy with the charity work," he muttered. Clara knew the charity office had closed early that day. She had checked. The silence was heavy. Clara looked at the man she had given everything, the businesses, the clothes, the status, yet he looked at her like a stranger. "Is there something you want to tell me?" she asked. A flash of anger crossed his face. "Why do you always have to be the boss, Clara?" he snapped. "Even at dinner, you're cross-examining me like an employee." He left his food half-eaten and walked out. Clara sat alone in the giant room, the cold air biting at her skin. The next day, Clara's brother Leo burst into her office. He smelled of expensive cigars and wore a suit that was too tight. "Clara, I need a favor," he said, leaning over her mahogany desk. "Sign this. It's a small loan for my new club." Clara scanned the paper. It wasn't a small loan, it was a massive debt, using her company as a guarantee. "Leo, you haven't finished the last project I gave you," Clara said firmly. Leo's expression turned ugly. "You have billions. Why are you so protective of a little cash? We're family." He slammed his hand on the desk. "One day you might need me. Don't be so hard on your only brother." He stomped out, nearly knocking over a vase. Clara leaned back. Her husband was cold, her friend was acting strange, and her brother was greedy. Everyone seemed to be waiting for her to stop.
Clara escaped the mansion and drove to her parents' quiet home. It was the only place where she didn't have to be the boss. The air smelt of cinnamon and fresh bread. Her mother, Elena, hugged her tightly, noticing she looked thin. Her father, Thomas, looked up from his paper with a smile. He didn't ask about stock prices. He only asked, "Are you happy, my girl?" Sitting at their wooden table, Clara finally breathed. "I'm just tired, Dad," she whispered. Her mother held her hand. "Robert hasn't called us in months, Clara. Is everything okay?" Clara lied, saying he was just busy, but Elena's eyes were sharp. "Money brings out the worst in people, Clara. Be careful. Not everyone has a heart like yours." Clara felt a lump in her throat, realizing her parents were the only ones who loved her for her soul, not her bank account. When Clara returned to her mansion that evening, she didn't go through the front door. She went through the garden gate. She wanted to walk among her roses to clear her head. As she moved toward the terrace, she heard a sound. It was the low murmur of voices. She stepped behind a tall hedge. Above her, on the balcony, Robert was standing with Maya. They weren't kissing yet, but they were standing very close, too close for a husband and a best friend, Robert said, his voice sounding annoyed. Maya laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the night air. Ha, she's so boring, Robert. All she cares about is work and her old-fashioned family. Robert sighed. Just be patient, Maya. We have to play the game. If we move too fast, the lawyers will notice. We need her to trust us completely. Clara held her breath, her heart hammering against her ribs. They weren't talking about a surprise party. They were talking about her like she was a problem to be solved. She stayed in the shadows until they went inside, her mind spinning with 1,000 questions. The next day, Clara pretended to go to the office but returned an hour later. She crept upstairs and heard a metallic scratching in her study. Peeking through the door, she saw Leo on his knees trying to crack her private safe. "Come on, I know the emeralds are in here," he muttered. Clara cleared her throat. Leo jumped. "I was just looking for a pen," he stammered. Clara stared at him with her boss eyes. "The pens are on the desk, Leo. The safe is for things that don't belong to you." Leo tried to mask his shame with anger. "You're so paranoid. No wonder Robert spends his time at the club." He pushed past her. Clara looked at the safe. Even her own blood was trying to rob her while she was still alive. That night, while Robert was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Clara usually never touched his things, but she knew she had to look. She picked it up. There was a message from a number that wasn't saved with a name. It just said, "Is the medicine ready? I'm tired of waiting. I want our life to start now." Clara's hands began to shake. "Medicine?" she whispered. She looked at her own nightstand where Robert had placed a glass of water and her nightly vitamins, just like he did every evening. She looked at the clear water. It looked normal. It looked safe, but for the first time, she felt like she was looking at a cup of poison. She heard the water stop in the shower. She quickly put the phone back and climbed into bed, closing her eyes and pretending to be asleep. She felt Robert walk into the room. She felt him standing over her, watching her breathe. He didn't lean down to kiss her forehead. He just stood there, silent and cold in the dark.
Clara did not sleep that night. She waited until Robert's breathing was heavy and deep. She crept out of bed and took the glass of water and the vitamins he had given her. She went to the kitchen and pulled a small plastic bag from her pocket. She dropped the pill inside. Then she used a tiny straw to take a sample of the water. The next morning, she didn't go to her office. She went to a private laboratory far away from the city. She paid the scientist extra money to walk fast. "Tell me what is in this," she said, her voice like steel. 2 hours later, the scientist came out. He looked worried. "This is a very rare drug," he said. "In small amounts, it makes you feel tired and confused. But if you take it every day for a month, your heart will simply stop. No doctor would know why. They would think you are just stressed." Clara felt a cold wind blow through her soul. Robert wasn't just waiting for her to die. He was slowly turning off her life. She took the report, tucked it into her bag, and walked out. She didn't cry. A boss doesn't cry when she has a war to win. She went to a toy store and bought a teddy bear with a hidden camera inside. The trap was growing.
The next day, Clara invited Maya over, acting frail. Her hands shook as she held her tea. "Oh, Maya," she whispered, "I feel so dizzy. I should change my will soon, just in case." Maya's eyes lit up. She moved closer. "That's smart, Clara. Robert is so stressed. Maybe can the company in my name to protect it." Clara felt sickened as Maya tried to steal the empire while holding her hand. "You're such a good friend," Clara smiled. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, an alert from the camera in Robert's office. On the screen, Robert was laughing with his friend over wine. "The lawyer comes tomorrow," Robert said. "We just need her to sign while she's confused from the pills." His friend nodded greedily, unaware of how far Robert had already gone, but ready to take his cut. Clara knew she had to protect the only people who truly loved her. She drove to her parents' house in the middle of the night, parking blocks away to avoid being seen. When she walked in, her father, Thomas, was sitting by the fire. "Clara, why are you here so late?" he asked. Worry etched on his face. Clara hugged him tightly. "Dad,
Mom, listen to me. I need you to go on a vacation right now. She handed them 2 plane tickets and an envelope of cash. Her mother, Elena, saw the fire in her daughter's eyes. Who is hurting you, my child? Clara shook her head. I am going to handle it, Mom, but I need you safe. If the news says something bad, do not believe it. Just wait for my signal. Her parents didn't ask more questions. They saw their daughter was in a fight for her life. As Clara watched them drive away, she felt a weight lift. Her heart was safe. Now she could face the monsters in her own home. After Clara arrived home, she saw that her husband was not back yet. She went straight to her room and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, as soon as her husband left for work, Clara knew she had to move fast. She went to see her family doctor at the hospital. She showed him the footage from the hidden cameras and told Robert was poisoning her to steal the company. I need a way out, she told him. I need everyone to believe I am gone so I can strike back. The doctor looked at her, his face pale. Clara, this is not professional, she said. What you are asking is a crime. It is completely illegal for a doctor to falsify records. If I get caught faking a death, I will go to prison and lose my license forever. This goes against everything I was trained to do. He paced the room, then looked at her with determination. But I won't let you kill you. I am going to give you a special pill. It will suppress your breath and slow your heart so much that even a professional will think you are dead. Since I am your family doctor, I know they will bring you to this hospital. When they do, I will be the one to receive you. I will use my power as a doctor to declare you dead and handle the paperwork so you can disappear. Clara felt a sense of relief. She had a safe exit. She didn't have to drink Robert's poison. She just had to wait for the right moment to act.
The opportunity came sooner than she expected. Robert walked into the room, his hand trembling slightly as he handed her a glass of orange juice. Drink this, Clara. You look like you have a headache, he said. He was trying to sound caring, but he was sweating. Just as Clara took the glass, a loud noise came from the garage. A car alarm had gone off. Robert cursed and ran out to see what happened. In those few seconds, Clara acted. She dumped the juice into the dirt of a large potted plant and wiped the rim of the glass. When Robert returned, she was leaning back with her eyes half closed, the empty glass in her hand. I drank it, Robert. I feel so heavy, she whispered. She let her body go limp, pretending to be unconscious. Robert called the ambulance. They rushed her straight to his hospital. Robert and Leo followed in their own car. Leo was shocked. He didn't know Robert was poisoning her. He truly thought his sister was just sick, but in his mind he was already thinking, if she dies, I finally get the inheritance. At the hospital, the family doctor met the ambulance at the door. He took Clara into a private room and emerged 20 minutes later with a grim face. It's over, he told them. Her heart failed. Robert pretended to be heartbroken, and Leo stood there in a daze, already wondering which of her cars he would take first. While Robert and Leo were busy making phone calls to lawyers in the hallway, the doctor moved Clara's body to a secure private wing. In the dark of the night, he helped her slip through a service exit. You have 48 hours before the burial, Clara, he whispered. She nodded, wearing a dark hoodie to hide her face. She checked into a small hotel under a fake name, her phone already buzzing with notifications from the cameras. She watched as Robert invited Maya over to the mansion that very night to celebrate. The trap was fully set.
Clara's parents, Thomas and Elena, were far away on a peaceful trip when the phone rang. It was Leo, his voice sounding fake and shaky. Mom, Dad, Clara is gone. The doctors couldn't save her. The world stopped for the old couple. They didn't ask about the money or the company. They dropped their bags and rushed to the airport, crying the entire way home. When they finally walked into the mansion, they expected a house of mourning. Instead, they found Robert sitting in Clara's chair drinking expensive whiskey. Robert put on a mask of sadness the moment he saw them. It was her heart, he lied, wiping a fake tear. She went peacefully. The parents collapsed in grief, not knowing that the man holding them was the one who tried to kill their daughter. The day of the funeral was cold and grey. To make the plan work, Clara had to leave her safe hotel and go back to the hospital. The family doctor dressed her in a beautiful white gown and placed her in the casket. He used his medical skills to make her skin look pale and her breathing invisible. They moved her to the cemetery where a large crowd had gathered. Her workers were there, crying for their boss. Her parents were broken, leaning on each other for strength. strength. But Robert, Leo, and Maya were standing near the grave, their eyes darting around. They weren't looking at the casket, they were looking at each other, ready to fight for the empire. As the service began, the sadness of the villains disappeared. They thought the boss was silenced forever, so they didn't even wait for her to be under the ground. Right there, in front of the open grave and the grieving parents, the dragging of things began. Robert held a piece of paper in his hand, a fake will. "I am the husband. This house and the main office belong to me," he shouted, his voice echoing through the cemetery. Leo stepped forward, red with anger. "No, I am her blood. I'm taking the factory and the cars." Maya joined in, screaming that Clara had promised her the jewelry. It was a disgusting sight. 3 scavengers fighting over a dead woman's life while her parents watched in horror.
The fight between the 3 grew violent. Robert pushed Leo, and Maya began shouting insults at Clara's memory. The priest tried to stop them, but they didn't care. They were so blinded by greed, they didn't notice the atmosphere in the cemetery changing. The workers began to whisper, and Thomas and Elena looked on with pure disgust. Robert sneered at the casket one last time. "Sleep well, Clara. I'm going to spend every cent you ever made." He reached out to slam the lid shut, but his hand froze. As Clara sat up in the casket, she didn't scream or make a grand speech. She simply breathed. The cemetery went quiet as Robert, Leo, and the partners froze, their hands still clutching the papers and jewelry they were fighting over. Clara didn't even look at them at first. Her eyes went straight to her parents, Thomas and Elena, who were trembling. She stepped out of the casket, her white gown dusty from the silk lining, and walked toward them. When she reached them, they fell into their arms. There were no words, only the sound of her mother sobbing and her father's heavy, relieved breaths. In that hug, Clara felt the difference between people who wanted her things. Clara finally turned her measured gaze toward the others. Robert froze, his fingers twitching as he tried to hide the fake will behind his back. Beside him, Leo stiffened, his hand trembling as he stared at the grass. Maya took a jagged step back, her face pale and eyes wide with a terror she couldn't mask. Clara stood tall, her chin lifted, a slight cold smile touching her lips. "I am alive," she said, her voice quiet but cutting through the air like a knife. "But for you, I am gone. You didn't even wait for the dirt to hit the coffin before you started tearing my life apart." She looked at Robert, her silence lasting a second too long. "I saw the glass, Robert. I saw everything. You didn't want a wife, you wanted a signature." She turned her eyes to Maya, her gaze like ice. "And you, Maya, I didn't realize our friendship had a price tag." Finally, she looked at Leo, her own blood, with a look of pure pity that stung worse than a slap. "I would have given you the world, Leo. Instead, you chose to steal from a grave." A heavy, suffocating silence followed. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Her business partners backed away toward their cars, silent and cowed. Clara looked back at the trio of traitors one last time. "Those are the last things you'll ever touch," she whispered, nodding toward the papers and jewelry they held. "From this moment on, I am a ghost to you, and you are nothing to me." The punishment was simple. Silence. Clara went back to her house with her parents. She didn't argue with Robert or fight with Leo. She simply changed the life they had all taken for granted. She stopped the bank transfers. She closed the shared accounts. She moved her parents into her home and gave the staff instructions that the husband and the brother were never to be let past the gate again. She didn't seek revenge. She just removed her presence from their lives. Without her money and her status to support them, the friends and the partners quickly turned on Robert and Leo, leaving the traitors with nothing but their own greed. A few weeks later, Clara sat in her garden with her mother and father. The business was still running, but she had stepped back from the stress. She looked at the 2 people who had stood by her grave with broken hearts, and she realized the gold and the luxury cars were just metal and paint. She had spent her whole life building an empire for people who were waiting for her to die, while ignoring the 2 people who lived for her to be happy. She finally understood the true meaning of wealth. The boss was still a boss, but now she governed a home built on love, not a company built on greed.